welcome to Miko's Music Connection. As you can see, this month is another oldie but a goodie, a touch in my childhood, my preteen and my teen years, with Linkin Park. This will have like a mixture of how I did my Dern Gray episode, but maybe a little less history of the band, because honestly, like, Linkin Park fans that are watching this, they know the history for the most part, especially if they started in the early 2000s, late 90s, and plus you can, like, you know, totally read the Wikipedia page, because I totally did that this morning before I made this video. And I decided that I'm not going to go too deeply into their history. I'm going to try to focus mainly on the music, because that's what the show is about, I think. So, yes, Linkin Park did start with a different vocalist. They were under different names, and eventually they came to the decision of having Linkin Park, and we have our members and all that other stuff. So yeah, let's just jump into stats before we jump into my connection with them. So it was around 7th grade, which was leading into the whole panic of Y2K, where I was just casually watching MTV at my grandmother's house, and I happened upon this very loud and aggressive, but so hype I just could not resist, rock song by the name of One Step Closer. I want to say that this is the first music video that I saw of Linkin Park's, and I instantly fell in love with them. Honestly, I wasn't really hardcore into rock music. I was just a casual listener of the genre. I was, like most black youth, grew up on good old hip-hop and R&B with some gospel, of course. But rock music was a thing that I got a little sample of through watching MTV, which I did do because I watched a lot of, like, TRL and some of the shows that were on there, such as this one. And I got a little sampling from, like, Metallica, a little bit of Korn, a little bit of Limp Bizkit, and all that other stuff, etc., etc. Oh, Red Hot Chili Peppers, too, Foo Fighters. But Linkin Park was the one that solidified my stamp into the rock genre. So, what was it about One Step Closer? It was a very, I don't know, innovative sound for the time. Sure, Korn had been doing it for, I think, a little bit longer than Linkin Park, but I think this really added to the addition of the new rock genre of nu metal. They somehow fused rap, hip-hop, electronic, and rock music so effortlessly, and it was just great. It just worked out really well. It wasn't until later that I came across, probably could be wrong on the numbers, I don't know. I think this was their biggest hit, the one that most people know, Crawling. Crawling, I think, is actually the song that hooked me into this band. Sure, One Step Closer introduced me and hooked me, but Crawling was the one that's like, yeah, you gonna be part of this fandom. Crawling gave me an introduction to Chester Bennington's range of vocals. He was great at the scream singing, but he was also just great at just singing. and to do both of those things are very difficult. As someone who's tried to sing, scream along with him in the car and failing miserably and trying not to destroy my vocals and my throat because I am not trained in such ways, and I don't even think I'm that great of a singer. But yeah, scream singing is very difficult. But the way his vocals and the chemistry that he had vocally with Mike Shinoda's rapping always worked so well. And it was something unique at the time, and I didn't really see a lot of rap rock groups. Sure, they were slowly coming out in that time period that mostly fed into what would be later be called the emo genre, or, you know, the scene aesthetic, where a lot of people in that time period wore a lot of black and had big hair and had like maybe a flourish here and there of neon, and they shopped at Hot Topic and they were hardcore and they were all about the darkness. Yeah, if you look at like Hot Topic now, it's very much like nerd centric and goth, because these two like scenes just very heavily like crossed over. And I mean, I don't mind. I kind of fit that. But looking back on that era as an adult, I felt like, oh no, I didn't have my emo phase. But listening to the lyrics and singing along to these old tracks, I realized, ooh, I definitely had, I guess, an emo phase because I was so into this. And Duran Gray is just on that dark emotional level as well. But I'm sure a lot of, you know, 90s kids and kids that grew up in the 2000s that listened to this type of music turned into, you know, anxiety-ridden, depressive adults now. It is what it is, guys. Anyway, it wasn't until later that I started to dig up as much information as I could on the interwebs about Linkin Park. I collected pictures, I tried to look up videos, I tried to download videos, listen to songs that I haven't heard. I wanted to join their fan club, I wanted to go to their tours, but I was just, you know, a little too young for all of that, and my parents were like, I don't think, you know, a 13-year-old should be going to something like this. But I was so happy to finally own their very first album, and I was definitely obsessed. I collected tons of pictures of Chester because I kind of had a little bit of crush on him, but mostly I just admired everything that he did. Just this whole group, just phenomenal. But this album, fan-effing-tastic. Not a skip in sight. I mean, granted, there are some songs on here that I listen to less than others, but from when it came out to now, still one of their most solid debut projects that I have ever heard from like any group. Hybrid Theory deserved all its accolades and kudos for that time period. And I think they set the bar for any groups that wanted to enter this genre. Some time passed and most groups would try to like figure out, what are we gonna do for our sophomore album? I don't know. Let's do a remix album instead. Why not? So I welcome you to the Reanimation era. Yeah, it's seen some things. Mine's a little faded, it's a little dusty, it's a little worn. But it's a damn good remix album. And most remix albums are pretty much trash in my opinion. Most remixes pale in comparison to their originals. But somehow, Linkin Park knew how to remix their classics, remix their hits, and make them at the same level as the original, or even better. Yes, even better. There are some songs that I like more than the original, or for most of them, I like them about the same as the original. Reanimation was such a game changer, and I remember sitting up late at night waiting for them to play all the tracks from this album on MTV2 so I could record all the music videos on my VHS tape. I mean, you already knew I was old. Like, come on. I have like a whole video of me in Vegas for my 30th birthday. I'm old. But yes, the music videos were pretty cool, and I liked how each track and each song, like, totally transitioned so smoothly. I enjoyed all the collaborations. Some of the songs leaned more towards their hip-hop side. Some of their songs leaned more toward their rock sound. Some of it included more electronic influences. And it was just an experience to listen to all these remixes and just be like, wow. How creative can you be to turn what was so fantastic in Hybrid Theory and even the international releases of Hybrid Theory into a remix album and, you know, create like a story in the listener's head while they're listening to it. It was a pure experience. I believe they did promote heavily Points of Authority with Orgy frontman Jay Gordon, and because I've seen that music video the most, and I thought that was a good choice. This was definitely one track that I enjoyed more than the original, but I do enjoy both. I'm also an Orgy fan, and I mean the band, you nasty people. So it was great to hear two of my favorite vocalists at the time collaborate together and make such a fantastic track. I'm not going to add anything else more about these individual tracks from the Reanimation era because I did a Throwback Thursday review of it, so I will definitely leave a link in the description below, and you can check out my detailed thoughts of each and every 20 tracks on this album. It was a fantastic journey to relive while reviewing it. So of course, as time went on, my obsession grew deeper and deeper for this band, and I was looking so forward to their actual next release. And I even watched MTV's making the video, and they were doing Somewhere I Belong. I miss watching these types of shows on MTV when MTV actually focused on the music. Yeah, they still, you know, put music here and there, but they're more about their reality shows. It is what it is. But it was just really cool to watch how they put together the visuals and the music and what they thought about in their art direction, etc., what goes into making the music video. I also had this recorded on a VHS tape somewhere. I don't think I even have it anymore. I don't know. But I believe they also did another making the video of Breaking the Habit, which I later learned was one of Chester Bennington's favorite tracks, and I will have to agree it's probably one of my favorite tracks as well, especially off of their next album, Meteora. Yes, it's also very well loved. A lot of the older CDs are very well loved, but I try to like still keep them in good condition. On this version, there's also an enhanced CD, so it had some like extra stuff on the back, so that was pretty cool. But Meteora somehow took what Hybrid Theory did and elevated it to another level, and I was just shocked and obsessed even more. It's just really amazing when an artist can take what they did, which was already at a high caliber, and set that at an even higher caliber. It just blows my mind. and it just made me feel like this band can't do anything wrong. And I felt that way with Dern Gray once I discovered them later on in my life, but there's just some artists that just can't do anything wrong. They keep dropping masterpieces. Speaking of masterpieces, I'm going to rewind back to Breaking the Habit. As much as I could to talk about Somewhere I Belong, which was the one that they started off with promotion for this album, Breaking the Habit put a spin in their visuals as far as putting together animation and live action. And the lyrics really, I guess, spoke to me in a way. But, I mean, a lot of their songs did without me actually knowing that they did. But I think, and I could be wrong, I could be remembering this wrong, I think this is what really, like, defined what was going on in Chester's mind. Because a lot of his mental health struggles were laced into a lot of the lyrics, and it's kind of heartbreaking to go back and listen to these old things that make me feel nostalgic but also make me think and reflect on his life and also my own mental health struggles. So Breaking the Habit, I believe, fits a lot of people's struggles and how to express that perfectly. Of course, there were several other songs that they promoted from the album. We have to move forward because they put out a lot of music. And their next release was something that made probably a lot of hip-hop fans excited, maybe a little skeptical. But I know how Blitmaster 5 kind of felt about this collaboration because, coincidentally, we were both Linkin Park fans without the other's influence. Don't know how that happened, but this collaboration was different than anything they've ever done from the Reanimation album. It was with Hova, Jay-Z. Collision Course Project was a step in another new direction that has not been explored in a really long time. If you're familiar with hip-hop history, you would know one of the big rock-rap collaborations was with Run DMC and Aerosmith with Walk This Way. This was a groundbreaking moment. And then later, this moment with Linkin Park and Jay-Z at their peak of their careers put another milestone in the collaboration of rock and hip-hop and how well they work together. There was a whole MTV live concert that came out of this, and it was just fantastic to watch. It took Jay-Z's hits with Linkin Park's hits and smushed them together, and it just worked really, really well. You would think they wouldn't blend so expertly, but I mean, I had no doubts. They've been in the game for a long time, and Linkin Park was very passionate with how they produce stuff, how they put stuff together, and it just worked really well. It had all of the best moments from your Jay-Z songs, like Dirt Off Your Shoulders and Big Pimpin' and Gigawatt. But you also had really great moments from Linkin Park as well, with Points of Authority and One Step Closer and The Inn. It was just a great milestone to experience in TV. These two big heavy hitters in their own genres coming together to produce something amazing. Definitely check it out if you have not experienced the Collision Course era of Linkin Park and Jay-Z.
I am a little bit of loneliness, little bit of disregard, handful of complaints, but I can't help the fact.
After their collaboration with Jay-Z, 4 years later, they had to put out another album. and people were curious, or at least I was, of what direction that they would be taking their music. I mean, we already know we're gonna get the same amazing screams and singing talents from Chester, as well as the lovely melodic sounds and hard-hitting pounding from the other musicians of the band, and also the quick, rapid-fire wit of Mike Shinoda. And of course, the influence of electronic from Mr. Joseph Hahn. So we got Minutes to Midnight. Forgive how beat up my copy is. It survived a hurricane, so a lot of my pages got stuck together and I had to do a little bit of damage. I believe that this album was the one that slowly started to deviate from their harder hitting sound. And it kind of caused some discussion among fans who really loved the mostly rock sounds of Hybrid Theory and Meteora. But for me, I was still on board, still enjoyed a lot of tracks from this one. We had some really great songs like Given Up, Bleed It Out, What I've Done. It was, I think, their first one that they promoted. But we also had some slower tracks on there as well that really poured out a lot of Chester's emotions through his singing talent, and it was a lot softer and somber, and a time to like reflect on your emotions, how you're reacting or dealing with what life is throwing at you, because 2007 was an interesting time. Some of these songs kind of give me some flashbacks of things that have occurred in high school. Mostly, they're all good for the most part, but I know one of these songs, I believe, was used for a competition, or maybe it was a song from Meteora, but I enjoyed Minutes to Midnight. I think I did a review of it years ago when it came out. I'll dig into my blog and see if it exists, and if it does, I will leave a link. I may have different opinions about it now compared to then, but from what I remember, I do remember enjoying this one, and it did lead into a slightly different direction from their previous releases, but it still felt like them. So here's the divisive error. After Minutes to Midnight came out, things started to change, and I was heavily into Japanese rock, and especially a little band called Durden Grey, and I felt like there was a lot of parallels in their musical journeys as well as their fandom reactions to their musical journeys. Durden Grey had tons of respect and have some influences from Linkin Park. So that made me very happy that they were on the same, like, I guess, playing field or whatever that I can, like, play off of. So when this particular album came out, Thousand Suns, in 2010, 3 years later, things were a little bit different. So, unfortunately, I'm digging in my memory of, like, what any of these songs sound like, but it's been a very long time since I've listened to most of these. But I can say it definitely was, I don't want to say maybe slightly underwhelming. Linkin Park is a band that constantly experiments with their sound, and no matter what, you're going to disappoint fans. Either they're going to complain about they sound the same, they don't want to try anything new, but then when they try something new, they're like, oh no, they're selling out, I don't know why they're changing, I wish they just stayed the same. And you're not going to make every fan happy. And I think this release was the beginning of the divide. No pun intended. This album really went in the experimental side of like their softer stuff. There wasn't as much screaming from Chester. I don't know if that was a musical choice or because of vocal restrictions, because I know he had some issues with his vocals for a bit, which sounds familiar with Turn Gray. He had to like cut down on some live performances because of all the screaming and whatnots. But it definitely delved into their softer sides, and there wasn't as many aggressive tracks compared to their previous hits, Meteora and Hybrid Theory. Nonetheless, I mean, since I have a physical copy of it, I didn't really complain too much. I kind of accepted that they were trying different things. And I probably should go back and re-listen to this, because honestly, I vaguely remember this album, but I know it was very triggering for the fandom. That feeling didn't really change too much after they released Living Things and The Hunting Party. These were more experimental albums for them. Sure, they still stuck to their rock sound with some rapping and singing, maybe a tiny bit of screaming, but it leaned more to their electronic and a maybe more mainstream friendly kind of sound. While I was preparing for this video, I really was thinking of how strategic they were with their experimentation. And this contemplation came on while I was, skimming through their Wikipedia page and kind of educating myself a little bit and thinking that I might use any knowledge that I have absorbed from said wiki page for this video, which I probably am not. But it made me think, for that time period, music was evolving, music was changing. Nu metal was not as popular in the 2010s. I can admit that. I am not afraid to say that. But yeah, nu metal genre was a more popular thing in the late 90s and the early 2000s, and it started to phase out. A lot of these emo bands were slowly fading out of popularity, and you can tell that from watching the charts of TRL, or if you're really into like keeping up with charts, I don't know, Billboard or whatever. But bands like, Korn stayed consistent. Evanescence started to fade a little bit. Your Stains and your punk rock Fallout Boy, not Fallout Boy, but like Sum 41 and all of those oddball rock groups, Limp Bizkit, Stain, Creed, those bands slowly started to fade in popularity. Sure, like hard hitters like Korn continue to make really great hits and continue to make really great songs to this day. And Linkin Park was one of the heavy hitters that was staying in the public eye. And they deserved it. But these two releases definitely continued that divide in their fandom of those who love the old and those who embrace their changes and what they were experimenting with. I feel like they were trying to stick with the times, but not completely, I guess what people would say, sell out. To its core, the tracks do feel like them, but the packaging and presentation kind of blended, but not quite blend, but it fit in with what was current of the time. They still stood out from their contemporaries, but they tried to, pick up other fans maybe. I had no problems with these releases, obviously, because I own them. I just blindly bought Linkin Park albums because I know they just make great stuff. I can admit that these aren't my go-tos, and that's fine. But there are tracks on here that do speak to me. Let's see if I can... I don't know. Let's talk about Lost in the Echo. That's a great song. It's a really good track. I'm trying to dig in my brain here. That's what happens when you don't prepare for your own videos and you don't listen to stuff beforehand. But I remember liking what stands out in my head that I can actually like hear in my head are the tracks from the Living Things album. This one, The Hunting Party, I don't remember like any of these songs. Like, some of the tracks stand out to me, but I could not hum or anything of it, and that's just awful. But it's not a bad thing. It's more of a time thing, and I haven't like listened to any of these CDs in like God knows how long. But I already admit, like, yeah, these last like few CDs, like after the Collision Course, I don't really like return to very often for my comfort, for my nostalgia, because I don't know, Hybrid Theory, Meteora, Reanimation really stood out to me as something new and different in my life because I was not into rock music. So in this time frame, Linkin Park is a fixture of my life. So there's no like marking like in this moment this happened. In this song you felt this feeling, or you heard this because this memory happened. Like, nothing triggers that. So maybe someone who came into the band, they have a song from these albums that have that feeling. But I will admit I am in team like their old stuff's better, but their new stuff isn't bad, it's just different, and different isn't bad. So before all of the changes and before I get to their unfortunate last album, I was able to see Linkin Park in concert. It was a dream come true for my preteen self of when I first got into them. I finally was able to buy my own tickets. I had a friend. We went to go see them. Their opening act was fantastic. It was just great to hear their newer material live, and also a lot of their older tracks that I enjoyed as a preteen teenager, and the energy was just great, even though they were like little tiny ants in my view, but just the whole energy was just fantastic, and it just felt like every video I've seen on YouTube when YouTube was actually, you know, a thing, and it wasn't just, you know, a potato sharing thing, if that makes sense. So I was looking forward to their next album per usual, and they were touring again, and after seeing them the first time, I was definitely on board for checking them out again. Especially because their opening act, I believe, was The Prodigy, another group that I've always wanted to see live, but they rarely tour in America. I love those guys. They are definitely a product of its time, still the late 90s, early 2000s, but they are a fantastic group. Unfortunately, they had to postpone the show because of Chester's vocals, I believe, or maybe that was the first show. I think that could have been the first show, I don't remember. There was one of the shows that I was attending they did have to postpone because of vocals, and so the Prodigy had to back out because of scheduling conflicts, which sucked. But I know this last tour to promote their newest album, One More Light, I was looking forward to seeing them again and just experiencing just everything with one of my friends. and unfortunately they had to cancel the show because Chester Bennington had succumbed his demons and committed suicide. It was a very devastating time for a lot of people, fans, family, bandmates, just everyone who knew him either personally or, the facade that he brought out. But he struggled with these demons for years and years, and I mean, you can hear that in his music. And it was just very unfortunate because I was really looking forward to having that moment again with them and a friend that I was getting closer to. So it was bittersweet to cash in my code to receive the new album, which you had the option to get digitally or physically. And being the physical collector that I am, and because I own all of their physical CDs, I got the physical version of One More Light. It took me about a year or so to actually take it out of its plastic and listen to it, and it is, once again, a different direction for them. It leans into a more pop rock, slightly more mainstream sound, not a lot of heavy screaming tracks, not a lot of electronic, I believe, but it definitely fit the era of, I believe, 2017. Yes. There was a lot of somber-ish mood type music back then. I didn't complain. I mean, definitely not one of my favorites, but it was just interesting to hear another side of the band and the lyrics that he had to share with us as far as Chester. So, and it was also great listening, not only with this album, but the previous 2 to 3 albums, hearing like Mike Shinoda tap into his vocal side as well and not just rapping. So they have dimension, they have different approaches to their sound. But it was great musical journey overall. One album I did skip over, they did have another remix album. I have that digitally. It's not good. It is no Reanimation. I liked a few tracks. There's like one non-remix track, I think, maybe more than one non-remix track. I don't remember what it's called, but I'll like put a picture or something of it. Sorry I didn't talk about that if that was a release that you enjoyed, but listening to all 7, 8 of these CDs as they were being released, it was an interesting journey of hearing these, was it 6, 7, sorry there, these 6 men grow and learn each other and play around with sound, play around with vocals, play around with different dimensions of their creative selves and how to express feeling frustrated, feeling angry, feeling mad, feeling sad, feeling depressed, feeling numb, feeling nothing, feeling happy, some sort of happiness and hope. All of these different emotions that we feel that maybe sometimes we're afraid to talk about. And you can hear that and feel that in not only the lyrics but also in the instrumentation, and that's one reason that I stuck with Linkin Park for so long. I've said this in my During Grave video, I believe, is one way I can attach myself to a group and hold on to them tightly is when I can feel their music, and Linkin Park definitely did that for me from my preteen years all the way to right now, even though they are not active right now. I realized while I was lightly researching things that I didn't really explore a lot of their different solo projects and stuff, and that's something I want to delve into at some point. I've heard a couple things from Fort Minor, which is Mike Shinoda's side group, and then there was Dead by Sunrise that Chester Bennington put together, and I didn't really hear a lot of his stuff from that group as well. I have heard maybe one or two solo things from Chester, especially his contribution to the Queen of the Damned soundtrack, which is a fantastic soundtrack. If you've not heard it, it is great. The movie, questionable for some people, but fantastic soundtrack. Definitely of its time. It's a nice little time capsule of the early 2000s for sure. But I definitely do want to check that out. And I also heard the fantastic collaboration with Max Shinoda and the Executioners with It's Going Down, which is a great song, hardcore banger. Definitely check that one out. I'll probably spice it in here. Let's spice it in here.
Now it's going down. Put it out for the world to see. LP and X-Men to the 10th degree. Going down. Nobody in the world is safe when we melt down the wax in your record creep.
The song's great. It's just fantastic. Nice balance of hip-hop and rock. I know, I'm just all over the place with this video, but I don't know what else to say about this group, but they've meant a lot to me. They still continue to mean a lot to me, and as someone who was late finding out that like a lot of my friends and family deal with mental health issues and feel like it's very important to take time for yourself. A lot of his words did speak to me and mean a lot, and they heal and comfort me, and they bring out a lot of feelings out into my tear ducts, and I have to, scream and cry it out, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I know there are people who struggle even harder with their mental demons, and there are people out there that are there to listen, to help, and whatnot. And I don't want to make this a PSA or anything, but there's places to go and people to talk to if you don't have that, personal support system and friends. If you come from a small town, or you're too shy, or you have social anxiety, or whatever, there are people out there to listen to you. You're not alone, and I just want to tell you that. So, I have to awkwardly, I guess, transition to some stats. So, here they are. I hope that my family and friends who support me here on my channel are not super worried about me, but I just wanted to be open and honest in this episode because, I don't know, Linkin Park is very important to me, and they've helped me a lot more as an adult because I didn't realize what I was consuming at the time, and that I would be dealing with, somewhat similar things later on in my life. Because, you don't think about these things until, your prefrontal cortex is fully developed at 25, and you're like, aha! I have mild depression and anxiety, and I should take better care of myself and check in with my emotions and deal with that. So, yeah, it takes time to figure out yourself, and you're constantly trying to figure out yourself most of your life, if not all of your life. I don't know, I'm not that old, but if you are a huge fan or have a connection with Linkin Park, please share that in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. It's been 5 years almost since the passing of Chester Bennington, and we don't know the fate of Linkin Park. While I was reading their wiki page, I definitely agree with Mike. I wouldn't want like a holographic Chester on stage. That feels kind of weird. But I don't want, it would be weird to have another vocalist in his place, but not as a replacement, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if I want them to continue on under the name, or maybe just make something new with something slightly different. It's just weird. And I'm sure there are other like rock fans out there who have dealt with people passing, and they're like, there's no other vocal talent that could replace them, because they were such a fixture, such a iconic sound to that group, and that's what made them unique. So until next time, I'll catch you guys later for another entry of Miko's Music Connection. Peace.